What's up? This is Rebel Radio.
What up, what up? This is DJ Newmark.
This is Peanut Butter Wolf.
It's your boy. It's okay.
Keep checking out Rebel Radio.
Rebel Radio.
This is Rebel Radio.
We're in the place right here. Rebel Radio is going down.
Would you say Rebel Radio?
Oh, wait. Let's do it again.
Rebel Radio.
What's up, Rebels? Welcome back to Rebel Radio. My guest this week is AJ Bertenshaw, the founder of Serato, makers of Scratch Live and now Serato DJ, and the brand new Pyro, which is a mobile app that turns your music into a playlist that sounds like it was mixed by a DJ. It's pretty cool. If you're into that sort of thing, I definitely recommend you check it out. We're going to have a great interview today with AJ. First of all, showing off his New Zealand accent, which I do not try to imitate. But he's going to teach us some good lessons about how he used his passion for music and his skills for building technology to build a business that's really meaningful to him and has totally changed the game for millions of DJs around the world. I assume it's millions, could be hundreds. He's got some good lessons about listening to customers, about admitting when you're wrong, things we can all learn from, and a special extra bonus lesson about how to handle it when one of your key business partners turns into a competitor. So good stuff there for the business heads, definitely good stuff for the music heads, and should be a fun interview. And now let's hear from AJ Bertenshaw. So I always like to kind of start at the beginning. And we'll work our way to what's happening. But so first of all, for anybody who's not familiar with Serato, I mean, I kind of just understand it as the standard for DJ software for right. That, as far as I know, every DJ uses it.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way when you go to the clubs here.
Yeah. How big is Serato?
Well, as a company, we have 107 employees.
Okay.
They're all based in Auckland, New Zealand. And we have, other than the full-time employees, we also have a few people who contract to us. So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And how big, how big is the brand? Like what, I don't know if this is even, like what, do you know what percentage of DJs are using Serato?
It's really hard to figure that out. I mean, you get the odd survey kind of thing now and again, and where the top three DJ software is us, Native Instruments, and Virtual DJ.
Right. And
our software is, so in the survey, I don't remember the exact results, but in the survey I looked at last time, ours was split between Scratch Live and Serato DJ because it was a little while ago.
Sure.
And when you added those up two together, it was the biggest percentage. Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah, and that was done by one of the DJ blogs. So it kind of depends on which audience you're talking to. That kind of thing.
Yeah, of course. But from my perspective, and part of why we like to have rebels on the show, and I think you and Serato have definitely revolutionized the art and business of DJing.
Yeah.
And that's a business that has been disrupted in many ways, and you guys are a big part of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we were definitely rebellious at the when we launched with Scratch Live.
Yeah.
If you're around then, you'll know that there was a big competition from a product called Final Scratch at the time, and that had the weight of Stanton behind it, which at the time was a pretty big name in DJ, right? And so they were spending millions of dollars on promoting Final Scratch, and we'd had zero budget for marketing. So
that's amazing.
It was all through word of mouth. You know, like we had some pretty strong evangelists, like Jazzy Jeff was one of our original, like really vocal, top tier DJs who was spreading the word. But like every time I meet an old school DJ, they tell me about all the people that they brought in on
course,
into
yeah.
Scratch Live, because
Yeah.
it was really like that. It was a this is the cool new thing. This is and at the time DJs were like allergic to laptops. Like the idea of even owning one for a lot of these guys was pretty radical. So
Sure.
You had to get their trust, and that's kind of where Final Scratch didn't measure up. There was so many stories of it crashing at the wrong moment and all that kind of thing. And so despite their marketing was good because it educated people on the concept of digital DJing with vinyl.
Right.
But the forum that we created on our website, which is still alive today, it's like it's a really busy place for DJs to get in there and talk about everything. Yeah. And you've probably been on it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And but at the time, that was how people were really kind of talking about it and exchanging ideas and that kind of thing. And one of the things that was really important to us at the beginning was just always being honest with our customers. And I still remember a time when I guess somebody like talked about a bug that they had found in the software on the forum, and it was like either myself or my the co-founder or like one of the developers, somebody got on there and was like, oh yeah, we found that we're working on it right now, and we were just honest about the thing. And there were like these comments saying, what are you doing? You can't do that. People software companies don't admit to their mistakes.
You can't
like they were kind of half joking but half not. And it was like, well, you know what, it's true. So and that's continued all the way through, where it's super important to us to just be honest about what's going on.
So did you set out to disrupt DJing? Was that the plan, or like where did the vision come from?
I mean, you say you want to start at the beginning, right? Like DJing isn't actually the beginning of Serato. So if you go wind back even a few more years, we actually started the company in 1998.
Okay.
And our first product was based on a very clever audio algorithm that my co-founder Steve West had come up with in his spare time. Yeah. And it's called Pitch and Time. And that is actually inside Serato DJ these days. It's something that you can use to change the tempo of music without the pitch changing and without distorting it too much. And that was something that the company was built on, that algorithm. So it was only I think it was about 2004 that we released Scratch Live, so that's a few years into the company, right? So it's everything that we have done has always been something that's like a new thing. Like, so the algorithm that we started the company on, when we showed it to people, they were like, minds blown. They were like, wow.
I mean, that was a big deal.
You can do that. And then
sampling.
So when my partner and I, Steve, we would experiment with lots of stuff. I mean, that's how we kind of met. We met at university, experimenting. We're both software developers, right? And so we met, experimenting with stuff and showing each other the coolest thing that we just. Was it all music stuff? No. Most of it was graphics stuff. Oh, really? And physics simulations. Like he had this simulation of a mattress falling into a giant room, and just weird stuff. We were just like, whatever kind of interested us, we would do it. And so that kind of thing happened. We had this great product that was out there. It was keeping us in overseas travel and keeping us off the streets. But then we were experimenting with all these different things. And one of these weekends, I just went home and I was like, I really want to be able to scratch. That scratching sounds really interesting. I've never had a turntable or owned a piece of vinyl, so I was like, okay, well, how am I going to do that?
So you guys weren't DJs?
No. Well, he did own a pair of decks. Okay. But he never really got into it. Sure. And
were you into?
We're both hugely into music. Yeah. And we had bands that we were in high school and that kind of thing.
What kind of band were you?
Like an 80s keyboard band. Okay. Like Pet Shop Boys kind of, like wannabes.
Sure.
And that so
excuse my ignorance, but are there big New Zealand acts?
Are there big New Zealand acts? Well,
Yeah.
Lord is a big New Zealand act. So
Cool.
I mean, she did pretty well over here, I hear.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's New Zealand music gets over here a little bit now and then, but I mean, you should check it out. There's actually a pretty interesting scene going on there. And, it's a little bit different to, what you used to.
I would
over
imagine.
here. Yeah. And it is thriving. We do have a music scene.
Nice.
So what I would say about, how we would experiment and just get into stuff. That weekend I went home and I just wanted to scratch, and I just for no reason wanted to do that.
Sure.
And so of course I used the skills that I have, which is software, and I was thinking, okay, well if I just took the sound wave and I went backwards and forwards on it like it was a needle on a record, I could probably simulate this. So then I wrote this thing in like about 4 hours, and it had this giant wood panel turntable on the screen.
Yeah.
And the record would turn, and then you'd scratch it with the mouse.
Okay.
And I took it into work, and we all played with it, and it was this cool thing. And we're like, oh well, that's a cool toy, and we didn't really think much of it, and we thought, oh, we might be able to turn that into a product, and we might be able to sell it for like $50 or something. But it wasn't until a few months later we kind of had the idea of, well, if we attached a MP3 player to it and then made it so that you could actually control it with turntables, that would actually be a thing. So
yeah,
Scratch Live was
That's
born.
amazing.
Yeah, it was just kind of, and it's funny because I had independently, come up with that idea of the, scratching inside software, and my business partner Steve had actually, while he was at university, advised somebody who was writing a paper on controlling things with vinyl records. So he'd already figured out the way of getting turntables to hook into the software, and then I never even knew that he'd been involved with that. And then I came up with this other thing about how to actually scratch it on the software, and then it turned out we'd both independently been thinking about the same thing for a while.
Yeah.
And so we thought, okay, well, let's do it. And
Yeah.
started hiring more staff. I think we had four staff at the time, including the two of us.
Sure. Yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, that's way better than my first turntable was it was a JVC boombox that had a little door and the turntable slid out.
Right.
And it was a linear tracking turntable, and I got it because I knew like I needed a turntable because I wanted to scratch. And but this is
So my first turntable wasn't real; it was imaginary. It was simulated.
That's amazing.
I had to build it myself.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I didn't know, so I'd heard scratching
Yeah.
a couple times, but I'd never seen it. And so I put the record on, and I tried to scratch by moving the needle, not the record. So I completely
Sideways.
ruined.
Yeah. Destroyed the needle.
So I completely destroyed the needle and the record. I still have the record with these
with the line on it.
terrible scratches. It was like a profile greatest hits, and it wasn't until probably 6 months later I went to a friend's house and he showed me, he had turntables. He showed me the thing, and I was captivated by it from day one. Do you remember like the first time seeing a DJ or seeing someone or really kind of getting
it's weird because the scene, I wasn't like in that scene or anything, and the scene in New Zealand wasn't like what it would have been here. So the first time I really saw someone tearing it up was when we took our little simulation to our very first NAMM show and had a little 10-foot by 10-foot booth in the arena there. And we had this, and because we'd already done a Pro Tools plugin for Pitch and Time, we just kind of made it as a Pro Tools plugin. I don't know if did you know about Scratch Studio Edition? So that was the first thing we did was as a plugin. So it required Pro Tools hardware and like all of this stuff. So the turntables were plugged into like a Pro Audio. It was this whole clunky getup.
Not very accessible.
It wasn't what Scratch Live was. But that was more like it was a product, and we did sell it, but it was kind of like more the prototype of the scratching side of the product, because that had to be really, really solid. It had to be so convincing that you couldn't tell it wasn't on the vinyl.
Yeah.
And so we were sitting there with our little booth, kind of showing off this scratch plugin, and up walks A-Track and starts tearing it up.
Nice.
And we're like, okay.
Did you know him or?
Nope.
No,
didn't know him.
Yeah.
And he was pretty young. I mean, obviously, he was really young when he was like 16 or something when he did the
when he won
DMC, and so this was probably only a couple of years after that. So he was still pretty young, right?
Yeah.
And he came up and scratched this thing, and the one that really surprised us was DJ Swamp. He walks up and he's got his big Metallica haircut,
right.
and we were super surprised when he could cut it up the way he could. And so that was kind of my first introduction to actually seeing it like in person, and this was like super up close.
Yeah.
Because
obviously
these guys were like blown away by this digital concept, because the main part of the demo was you could pick up the microphone, say something, and then scratch what you just said. People were like, whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And then we came back like a year later with Scratch Live at NAMM show, and this time we had like a 20-foot by 20-foot booth, and we had two turntables and a mixer, which the mixer at the time was the Vestax, the Gold 05.
Sure.
That's what we had, and that was and then we were just showing it to people. We had built the hardware ourselves, the first SL box, and we had talked to a couple of companies about making the hardware for us, and we that's where we met Rain and struck a deal. Yeah. And that was the beginning.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is it you make it sound like you're just kind of like playing around with different ideas and and now here we are, right?
Yeah.
Was there a moment when you realized that you really had something?
I think when someone who when I we did this like a vinyl battle called Vinyl Combat, and we went around these different cities, and that was when I first met the magnificent Jazzy Jeff, and he's someone I grew up watching on TV. Sure. And when he was saying, this is all I use now, I don't even carry real records, I've got 2 laptops instead, and I realized, and he was telling me about all the different people he'd been selling it to and all this kind of thing, and it was just as it was about to take off, like we sold a sort of a steady amount for the first year, and then all of a sudden it went 10 times that and started taking off. Yeah. And it was about then where I was like, okay, this is big. This is changing people's lives.
How many years was that into the product? So after you released Scratch Live, like
that was 1 year, and
that was the second year.
Yeah. I mean, we knew it was good. The thing is, we knew it was a good product. We knew that it was well made and all of that kind of thing. And that's one of our things. I said, being honest is one thing, but like just having things not perfect, but excellent. That's kind of really important to us. It has to be excellent. And so that was, we knew it was good, and it was just good to see that get rewarded, like and so we're very strong believers in, if you build it, they will come, as they say.
Yeah, and it's also, it seems like there's an evolution, right, that technology has kind of worked its way into music, feels like in steps, right? Because there's always that, I don't know if backlash is the right word, but there's
resistance. Yeah. And there was definitely a lot of resistance to even just the concept of digital DJing at the beginning. And I think that resistance isn't there so much now. I think people get it. And it's there's still plenty of people out there who are purists in the, like, or traditionalists, I guess, in the sense, and, still spin vinyl, still carry vinyl, do all of that kind of thing. And that's, I think that's kind of one type of artist, and the ones who've embraced technology, they're not better or anything than the ones who don't.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a different approach to the art.
Sure.
And every type of artist has their preferred set of tools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's people still paint portraits, and cameras have been around for a very long time.
Yeah, of course.
Right, and it's that if that's the type of artist that you are, then those are the tools that you carry.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I mean, it's funny. I've sat through a lot of those debates, as I'm sure you have. Although I have no skin in it either way, so
Yeah, well, so I mean, I'm a big believer in technology democratizing, the whole access to creative tools.
Yeah.
So, I get both sides. I get the side of the people who worked their butt off and saved every cent to buy vinyl and all of the stuff that you had to go through at the beginning to get good, to even be able to do anything.
Yeah.
Everyone had to work that hard to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And so what technology does is it makes it that much easier, which means that many more people can do it.
Right.
And so, on the one hand, you can argue, oh, well, then you get a lot more junk. You get a lot more people who don't have the skills, who are just in there because they can.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think amongst all of that, there is still the amazing artists who are very good, who maybe wouldn't have had the opportunity if the technology wasn't there.
Sure.
And I think it's worth it. Like you look at YouTube, you look at everything, social media, everything nowadays, we have got so much access to everybody now that it becomes really clear that there's a lot of people with not much to say who are getting out there and saying it, right? And so, but amongst all of that, a few really talented people sort of still rise out. And I think the way that technology makes more people able to, attempt means that many more great artists will appear.
Sure.
And it's still going to be a small percentage of the population.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. So do you see people kind of advancing the craft? I mean, I think when we think of the best DJs, in the world or of all time or whatever, right? We think of Jazzy Jeff and A-Track and Qbert and, guys who started without the technology.
Yeah.
Is that is that just a function of age, or is there something about like doing it the hard way that gets you to that point, even though all those guys use the technology now?
Yeah.
Right. And I always to me, scratch is such a win because if for no other reason, then you don't have to carry crates, right? Because I can't, there's no DJ who's ever enjoyed lugging those things around, right? And obviously you guys, you enable so much more than that, but that alone is a game changer, right?
Totally.
For guys that are lugging 70 pounds of records, 100 pounds of records around.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously that's like old news now. So
yeah,
I mean,
of course,
people aren't doing that,
right?
Because
why would you?
Why would you? And when we first started, the thing I would say to people is, this is great for your vinyl because you can stop, wearing it out. You can put it on a shelf. You can, you can digitize all your vinyl and protect it.
Yeah.
And so, I had someone, I remember say, well, what do you say to people who say you're, killing vinyl? And I said, well, we're not killing vinyl. We're saving the turntable.
Mm-hmm.
And, at the time, if you remember, it was when people were shifting towards CDJs because it was just too inconvenient to carry that much vinyl.
Absolutely.
And so a bunch of people had already made the switch to CD, and they were probably the last ones to switch to Scratch Live because they'd already made a switch.
They didn't have the need as much. And they just invested
money.
Well,
then they were carrying these Bibles of CDs, which...
I always had there's just nothing that looks cool about that.
No.
Like whipping out a CD. I know I have friends that still, they DJ. It's just not cool.
Yeah, a bunch of CDs with, Sharpie on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's
plastic
not
little
sexy.
sleeves. It wasn't. Vinyl has always been way cooler.
Absolutely.
And so we had people skip over the CD wallet stage.
Yeah.
The ones who held on to vinyl, a bit longer and just didn't like the idea of CD. They got to go straight from vinyl to vinyl.
So back to the question though, do you need to go through that? Like,
look, I think that it's been said many times, to become a great artist, takes 10,000 hours, and that's still the case. It doesn't matter how much technology you have. Mastering a skill takes time. It takes dedication, and the fact that you can get somewhere with technology, like it'll carry you some distance, and you get into it, you can do something adequate. Doesn't change the fact that to actually be a master, you still have to spend the time, and you can do it with the technology. You can do it without the technology. I believe that the technology just gives you more things that you can do, and that was the really great artists that I respected. That was kind of their view on the technology.
Sure.
Like this just lets AM was famous for saying, this gives me my third arm that I've always wanted. This lets me play even more songs, because he was like the pioneer of that whole open format.
Yeah,
like, I'm going to play 20 different genres back to back, and you're going to you're not going to be able to even follow what I'm doing. And so he was able to do that even more with Scratch Live than with vinyl. So he was like, I love it, I'm in. And A-Track's the same. Like we actually lost A-Track to Tractor for a couple of years.
Oh, really?
Because they had sync, and we had been resisting adding sync into the software, because there was this vocal crowd of traditional turntablists saying, sync's for pussies, we don't, so we'd kind of, we tried to, so we resisted it for a long time, and then we eventually realized that there were these top tier artists saying, hey, I know that I can mix two records together. I don't need to prove it every 5 minutes of my life. Sync is good. I'm going to use sync. When you have it, I'll come back. And so, we implemented it, and he came straight back. It was, it was good to kind of get that perspective on, not everybody thinks that, technology is cheating. It's when you've beat matched, hundreds of thousands of songs together. Why do you need to do that every single time? And for some people, it's once you've done it that many times, obviously it's like second nature and it's natural. But you also don't need to keep proving that you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what about? I mean, you kind of mentioned it with sync, but what are some setbacks along the way? Like what, you talked a little bit about the resistance. Not everyone was ready to embrace technology, right? But what have been some pitfalls that you've had to overcome?
Well, a lot of our customer base is very traditional, and a lot of them do embrace change, and they want to try the latest thing. But then other ones question whenever you change something, or you add something, or you make it different. And so, one of the questions I saw somebody tweet in to your Twitter channel there was, why did you get rid of Scratch Live? Big mistake, something like that, right? So I mean, there's this kind of perception among some of our long-time customers that Serato DJ is something different to Scratch Live, and it's new and it's different and it's not what they want and all that kind of thing. But the ones that have made the switch and seen all the things you can do inside Serato DJ, it's always been really positive. It's super stable. Like Serato DJ has it, and it's based on Scratch Live.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that I find interesting about you guys is that you're so close to your customers.
Yeah.
Did you, how'd you know to do that?
It seems obvious. It's like,
it does, but not everyone does that.
well, I mean, if you think about it this way, my business partner and I finished college and then started a company together.
Mm-hmm.
And so we didn't really learn business or we just kind of did things by instinct.
Sure.
And being honest and being listening to what our customers have to say just seems like good business practice,
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's difficult because sometimes you have a vocal minority saying one thing, and a fairly quiet majority saying, well, we don't really want that.
Yeah.
And so you always have to balance things like new features with feature requests,
Mm-hmm.
like, because you want to keep surprising people and keep showing them something new that they hadn't thought of before. And but at the same time, you also want to listen and do what people want.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. You kind of learn the business along the way.
Yeah.
And running 100+ person company is, I can imagine, not easy.
It's pretty different to how it was.
Yeah, for sure.
What it was for.
For sure. So, how have you done that? Are there mentors that have helped you, or are you just, did you go get an MBA somewhere in your spare time, or like how have you learned?
I mean, one of the things that we did, so the company is actually it's a family business. It's owned by 4 people,
Mm-hmm.
myself and Steve, and my father and Steve's mum, and so they were there in the background, like giving us advice. My dad had run companies before. She's chartered accountant, so that side of it, you got to get your finances right. If you got your finances right, that's like the first step.
Well, if you don't have them right,
if you don't have them right, you're screwed. But a few years in, when we started getting a little bit bigger, what we realized is we needed a board.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got in one more external person,
Mm-hmm.
and right now the board has got 3 external people who are like professional board members, if you like, and so that we meet once a quarter to look at what's happened, and we get advice from those guys, and it's probably the mentoring that we've had.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, playing it by ear has always been our way. Yeah. And I think people always have an idea of what the right thing to do is, and so it's just being willing to do the right thing. You can pretty much weather most storms.
Yeah. Can you think of when that's been tested?
Tested. Well, I guess an amusing example was we produced a whole bunch of vinyl with a giant 240 point spelling error on it, and it wasn't obvious when you first glanced at it. It was the word official.
Uh-huh.
It was written official.
Oh, wow.
And should we just like not say anything and maybe no one will notice, or we what we're going to do? We're going to make an announcement, put it on sale. You can sell it for half price or something, and then so we did that, and it was funny. There was a couple of articles written about us, like what a cool thing to do.
Yeah,
and,
sure.
Like this is why Serato. This is why people trust and love Serato, because we do stuff like that. We admit when we goof and move on.
Yeah, I mean, what companies have such a hard time with it. I mean, I guess humans, we have a hard time with that, but
yeah, we do.
But especially when you put a LLC at the end or something like that.
Well, I guess an even more recent example, it was kind of still unfolding at the moment, was we recently to make Serato DJ more future-proof, we had to replace our graphical user interface code, and that code has been there since the version 1 of Scratch Live. So it is old stuff, and it was relying on some Apple libraries which have been deprecated for many years now. And deprecated means it's still there and it might keep working, but any moment we might take it out and it'll stop working. Yeah. So that's been something that's been, you know, risking our future for a while. So we spent probably 2 years rewriting all of the graphical code, and as we were coming up to version 1.8, you know, the deadline was really close, and we had you know, that Pioneer hardware that we had, you know, we had to time it with that to come out with that thing, and so we were down to the wire on some of these graphical elements, and one of the ones was we call it the tempo match display. Some people call it the icicles. It's like this thing that's been there since version 1 of Scratch Live, and it helps you kind of align the tempos of two pieces of music, no matter how wavering the tempo is, or no matter what it is. You can visually see the beats and get the tempos right. And you know, we asked a bunch of users, and people were like, I don't even know what it does. And you know, so our user experience team said, it's not going to be missed. People don't even know what it is. Nobody uses it anymore anyway. So we didn't implement it in the new GUI. And so 1.8 came out, and this thing was missing, and people were not happy. There was there's a kind of forum thread where people were like, what the hell did you do? And, you know, all that. So
that's funny.
You know, we had a few meetings about it. We're like, okay, how many people is this affecting? Are they, you know, what's going on? We had to so we monitored the situation. We're like, okay, well, maybe we put it back in, and so we had to work out, you know, how much resource we'd have to put into that kind of thing. So anyway, we ended up making the decision of doing it, because one of our key sort of strategy statements at the moment is listen to our customers. So it's like, okay, people want it. They're pretty upset about it being gone. So putting it, and it wasn't a matter of we took it out. We just didn't build it for the new GUI. And so we put it into the roadmap, and it'll be back in a future version pretty soon.
So how do you you know, you have a strategy statement, you have some partners with a set of beliefs, then you got 100 people to hire and to get them to sort of behave within those parameters. What have you learned about hiring people and building teams? Who you hire is really important, and we're fortunate that we've got a really great culture at Serato, and we've got kind of this reputation of being like a cool place to work, and so we get people coming to us. And you know, we do stuff with the local university and their computer science department and that kind of thing, to kind of keep awareness up that there's this place you can go once you finish your degree. And so we interview people, and then we give them a test. So I'm talking about developers right now. And they take this piece of homework home, and they do the test, and they come back, and sometimes someone interviews really well, and then they really flunk out on the test. And it's like, well, we actually... What's the test? Is like develop?
Like, it's a real life programming problem that they have to a problem that we've had to solve in the past for our software. So it's an actual real life thing.
But you guys have worked it out.
Well, that's the thing, is it's always interesting to see different ways of approaching it. So you know, like if someone in their interview test solves it way better than what we've been solving it, then we would definitely use it. And it's not the getting the right answer, it's seeing how they approached it. And so you know, we look at see how they approached the problem and what they did to solve it. And even if they don't solve it, it's you know, if they took the right approach, it's like, or took a good approach.
So if they can't solve it, are they still eligible for?
I mean,
you would still hire them.
In some ways, there's no right answer to that problem, and there's no like correct solution. So
Yeah.
it's all about seeing how they approach it.
Interesting.
And it's really important to us that people believe in what we're doing, and
Right.
that we're very fortunate that that's what the team is all pretty passionate about.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I'm sure. So
solving problems.
beyond developers, how do you do that with your support people and your marketing people and your?
Well, it's pretty organic at Serato. We don't have like team building exercises and
Right.
rah-rah sessions and all that kind of thing. We just we give our managers the autonomy to kind of manage that however they'd like to.
Mhm.
And so we don't. There's an org chart, but it's not a real sense of hierarchy there. We try
Right.
and keep it as flat as possible.
Yeah.
And I regularly go in front of the staff and encourage them to, if you have a problem, and just go as high up as you want. Talk,
Mhm.
My office is open. Come talk to me if you think
Yeah.
there's something that we're not doing. And I every week I send out a probing question on some aspect of our business, and read all the answers, and people
Nice.
they're made public. And so
Yeah.
it's like
What's it like? Can you think of a question?
it's something as simple as, did you get 4 hours of uninterrupted time last week to do your work?
Yeah.
Or do we have too many meetings? Or questions like that. And everyone says yes or no, and then their comments, and
Mhm.
it's
great.
It's a way to kind of like try and keep on top of what
Sure.
people are thinking, and and it's a culture where people are encouraged to dissent if they don't agree,
Mhm.
and I think that's important.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's talk about Pyro. I'm curious, where the idea came from. It seems when you showed it to me like almost counterintuitive for a
Right?
company that makes DJ equipment,
Sure.
DJ tools to put this out. So just tell us what it is and how the idea came about.
Yeah. So being part of a culture where DJ mixed music is like the norm, and this is how whenever I go out, whenever we have a party, whenever
Sure.
music is always just mixed that way.
Yeah.
It seems weird to then go home, listen to music on your iPod or your iPhone or whatever, and it's not done that way.
Yeah.
Like you can download mixes,
Right.
but what about choosing your own songs and just listening to them mixed together the way that you
Yeah.
would normally if you were out, hear that. And the fact that the app mixes songs together is kind of only part of the equation. Like the real thing of the app is the way that you put the songs together that are kind of coming up next,
Okay.
And so the problem that
So explain. So folks haven't seen Pyro, obviously. So
yeah, well,
give us what's the pitch?
So the pitch is creating playlists for 99% of the population is a pain in the butt, and they don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And so you've got 20 friends coming over, and you need to put some music on. You've probably got some playlists already, or you just put it on shuffle, or there's a bunch of things that people do, but none of them. They all have a couple of holes in the logic. One of them is if you have, let's say you do have a playlist which has got all the songs on you want to listen to, and then somebody wants to listen to a different song that's not on that playlist,
Right.
then you are screwed, because then you have to get out of
have
that
to jump
playlist,
out.
play that song,
Right.
and then if you go back to that playlist, it's forgotten where you were. And
Sure. You gotta start
Shuffle
over
has got
and-
the feature of
Right.
it doesn't repeat the songs, it doesn't
Mhm.
just go randomly, it remembers, but not if you leave the playlist.
Right.
And so Pyro has a different approach where you are basically all the time you're creating a playlist. You're creating an on-the-fly playlist,
Mhm.
and you can draw from playlists that you have. You can draw from your Spotify playlists. You can draw from you can do searches. You can do all those things, and every time you add music, it's just adding to that list, and that happens while you're playing. So searching for music on most apps breaks you out of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Whereas this is designed so that there's the player, and it's just going through your songs, playing them in order, and keeping the music going, and then you can be searching for, it's kind of like that digging while your tracks are playing, except it's kind of like if you were the digger and someone else was doing the mixing, and you were just handing the records over, so you get that continuous flow. And the idea of it is that you can be as hands-on or as hands-off as you like. You can choose every single song that's going to come up, and you can choose the order, or you can hit the mix-up button, which kind of shuffles them for you, but then shuffles them into an order where the tempos have a nice progression and for better mixing. Or you can choose like 2 songs and then let Pyro choose the rest, and it'll especially if you're hooked into Spotify, it'll use the Echo Nest engine, which is very mature now, and it's very good at finding tracks that go with the tracks you've already selected. So the whole idea of it is the party never stops. You push play, and the music is continuous, it's smooth, it's seamless, and it doesn't stop until you tell it to.
Yeah.
And so the fact that it does it analyzes all the beats in a song and then beat matches, so that when you go from one track to the next, it's like a nice smooth 8-bar crossfade. That's like a bonus feature in my mind. It's the how easy it is to put together a playlist in a few seconds. Yeah. That's the main strength of it.
So where did the idea come from?
It actually came from being annoyed at having to create playlists every time we had a dinner party or a party. My wife would say, "Okay, can you make a playlist for tonight?" And I was like, and the thing I noticed was that it doesn't feel fun to create a playlist ahead of time because you don't know what mood you're going to be in. But then as soon as people start turning up, you know exactly what you want to play. Sure. But it's too late.
I think DJing is fundamentally kind of misunderstood in some ways, as popular as it is. But, people, I think it's easy to underestimate the work that it takes to be a good DJ.
Yeah, totally.
And some of that is, it's knowing what song to play at what moment and what song follows the previous song, and and how all that works. And I think it sounds like Pyro kind of really gets to the heart of that.
Yeah, well, it cuts out the requirement of having to do anything else other than concentrate on what's coming up next. Right. And that's the question that you're constantly answering in the app. And so it's a selectors app. It's there to automate the rest of the the playing of the music while you concentrate on what am I going to play.
So why is it a good idea and it's not going to cannibalize Serato's business?
Well, it's a good idea because I think it's something that needed to happen. I think
it's free, right?
It is free.
Okay.
Yeah. Here's what I think about it. I did have one person come up to me and say, "What are you doing? This is going to put DJs out of business." And in some ways, I think Pyro raises the bar a little bit for DJing, because if you can't mix at least as good as an algorithm, then you should just use Pyro. Yeah. For your listening experience. But having said that, Pyro is a listening experience. It's not a DJ app. It's not designed for going and standing in front of a crowd of people and playing music. I'm sure some people may do that with Pyro. Sure. But
yeah, I mean, you can envision that some shitty burger joint, they just plug an iPhone in and
sure. Yeah. And when I showed it to Jazzy Jeff last year, his comment was, "This is great." Anyway, there's a couple of really good DJs at the table at the time, and he said, "You know what? This is going to keep us in business for years to come." And kind of a counterintuitive way of looking at it, and he's got a very creative mind.
Sure.
What he said was, well, this is going to raise the bar, raise people's expectations on how they listen to music.
Yeah.
Because right now, if you're at home, you don't expect to hear something mixed well. You just hear, disjointed music.
Mm-hmm.
But once people get used to hearing things like pyro, they won't want to hear it any other way, was his point. So DJs are always going to be needed.
Sure.
And the way I see it is pyro isn't a replacement for a DJ. Anyone who thinks that pyro is replacing a DJ really doesn't understand what it is the DJs do, because there's so much more to DJing than the mechanical mixing of two songs.
Right.
And already DJs don't have to know how to do that because sync.
Yeah.
So the fact that we've kind of hidden all of the complexity of what it takes to mix two songs together underneath a nice, smooth, slick interface just means that people who don't know how to DJ, don't want to know how to DJ, but love to listen to music that's mixed,
right,
can have that experience at home. It's like no different to, do you have an espresso?
No, but I'm familiar with it.
You're familiar with them, right? So
I actually have a hand thing that because I'm a pain in the ass like that.
Yeah. Well,
but
you don't see baristas saying, "Oh my God, I'm gonna lose my job because Nespresso." Right. It's like,
no, if anything, it's the other way, right?
It raised people's expectation of coffee. You know, it's a good product. You can actually have espresso at home now because it's like foil sealed. Blah, blah, blah. It's like easy. You can't screw it up. You get a nice espresso. It's not, the same as going to a cafe and getting an artist to mix it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know, you're involved in the DJ AM movie. I know you were close with him. And we've talked about some of the other DJs. How important are the rock star DJs or the influencers?
They're super important. I mean, you can't forget about everybody else, but people look up to the rock stars, and we try to have a relationship with those guys, not because they're famous or whatever, but because they are the masters of the craft. And if they have an opinion about what the product needs to be able to do, then that's something that we would listen to. And if those guys stopped using it, other people would start to question, maybe they're onto something here.
Sure.
What are they using now?
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's how it works. People listen to people who they respect, and so that those guys are important to us.
How much is there? Are there regional differences? So you have this global brand, right? That not only has to speak to people in different languages and cultures, but also there's different styles of DJing that presumably have different needs, right?
Yeah.
The scratch DJ versus the house DJ or the wedding DJ, right? Like they all have. So
there's there is quite a bit of regional difference. So the market in the US is very different to the market in Europe, and we've always done very, very well in the US, and our history of catering to the hip hop and the scratch DJ has often meant that, particularly in Europe, people look at our product and think that it's not for them. Right. Oh, I don't scratch, so blah blah blah. But that was part of the evolution from Scratch Live to Serato DJ was to change that perception so that people realize, oh, actually, this is great for all formats of music. It's not just for hip hop, and it's great for that, but it's also, good for dance music or minimalist techno or whatever it is you might want to play. Yeah. And so growing in Europe has been more difficult than it was in the US. And that's also to do with the competition has had longer to establish themselves, but we're pretty happy with our penetration now in Europe, and the US is still super strong for us, And yeah, we did a trip to Europe to kind of figure out, well, what is it that Euro DJs want. And we asked a bunch of people, and we observed, and we went to clubs, and we did all this stuff, and then we went home and we created a plan, and we catered some of our features towards that type of DJ.
So how much of that was actual product differences versus the messaging and the marketing and the way that it was presented?
Yeah, it was probably more the messaging than the actual. So we did come back with some features, and we implemented those things, and we you know, but I would say you know, 3/4 of the job was actually the messaging side of things. So that's always difficult as well. Europe is a bunch of different languages, and so one of the things we did was we translated Serato DJ into 6 languages.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so you know, you can use it in French, German, Italian, etc. And so that's helped. Yeah,
absolutely. So you're almost 20 years in.
Yeah.
What's been the greatest, you know, what's been the most personally fulfilling part of this?
It's actually pyro.
Yeah.
So the first thing we did was Pitch and Time, and that was pretty much all Steve. You know, he invented that, and I helped build the software around it, but that algorithm was, you know, straight out of his brain. And Scratch Live was something we, like I said, came up with together, and then pyro was my baby. So seeing that mature into something that is now available and people are loving has been very personally satisfying.
Nice. What's been the toughest day?
The toughest day? Yeah, what would be the toughest day? There have been some tough days recently with the El Capitan and just the you know, the negative stuff that's been coming at us, and you know, we can't do anything about it.
Sure.
You know, it's tough. And then you know, it was tough finding out that the Pioneer decided to go into competition with us. You know, you know, they had their reasons, and we were like, we were sad about the change in the relationship, but at the end of the day, we get to carry on and keep making great software, and we keep working with them. So it's still good.
Right on. Do you have a favorite DJ?
I always have to give this one to DJ Vice, and he. Wow. I know, and there's a really good reason for that. And he's the guy who was there when I met my wife. So I met my wife. We're both from New Zealand, but we met in Las Vegas.
Oh, you're kidding.
And I went to so DJ AM snuck me into a party, and I met her, and we didn't spend any time together, but you know, 2 Kiwis, so we you know, met each other. Then the next night we went out to Lavo, and Vice was playing, and shouted out New Zealand and all that kind of stuff, and it was like the beginning. So it's kind of like, you know how people have our song, we have our DJ.
That's awesome.
Vice, so
nice.
He's for me a lot of time, because I know a lot of these guys personally.
Sure.
Personality comes into it, and he's just like the nicest guy you could possibly meet. So yeah, he's my favorite DJ.
That's awesome. Yeah, Vice is great. I remember when I was managing the Baker Boys, and he was starting out at Power 106, and just the sweetest guy.
Yeah, and you know, like in terms of skills and like love watching and all that kind of stuff, AM was the one for me. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, thanks for being here, man. I appreciate your openness and generosity. I'm excited to see how Pyro evolves. So it's iOS?
Right now it's iOS.
Now. Okay.
And we'd never done Android before, so we just wanted to get iOS out first.
Doesn't matter. Buy an iPhone and buy a Pyro and get Pyro for free.
Yeah. No, we're working on it. There's a lot of people out there with Android.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. Awesome, man. Well, come back. Let us know how it's going.
Okay.
Anytime you're in the States.
All right.
Cool. All right, that was AJ from Serato. Hope you liked it. Let us know. Hit us up on Twitter. Send us a comment. Leave us a review on iTunes. Tell us how we're doing. Oh, we also have a Facebook page, Rebel Radio on Facebook. And most importantly, come back next week for more. Peace.